Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, let's dive right into this. Today, we're unpacking a truly fascinating and deeply nuanced military campaign from the Mahabharata, Bhimasena's Eastern Campaign. As you're going to see, true conquest here required a shockingly sophisticated blend of absolute brute force and high-level diplomacy. It's a wild ride.
I want to set the scene for you right away. Just imagine the terrifying scale of this for a second. An ancient army is marching eastward, completely decked out with its full complement of elephants, horses, and chariots, or cars. We're not talking about some small raiding party here. This was a mighty host literally causing the earth itself to tremble with their tread. It's just a massive, awe-inspiring display of power meant to totally intimidate the enemy before a single weapon is even swung.
Now, as we follow our protagonist, you're going to hear him referred to by several heavy, epic titles in the text. Our main commander is Bhimasena, but honestly, whether the text calls him the tiger among men, the bull of the Bharata race, or the son of Pandu, we are talking about the exact same terrifying, heroic leader, a guy possessed of great valor who is ever increasing the sorrows of his foes.
Here is our literal campaign roadmap for today. First, the Eastern Campaign begins. Second, diplomacy and swift victories. Third, the bare-knuckle king. Fourth, fierce feats in the East. And finally, the Chedi diplomatic summit.
So Section 1. The Eastern Campaign begins with the ascent of Yudhishthira. Moving into Section 2, diplomacy and swift victories, the Panchalas and beyond.
You know, this massive mobilization doesn't just happen on a whim. Endued with great energy, Bhimasena first makes sure to obtain the assent of Yudhishthira the Just. And as the campaign finally rolls out, this mighty host heads eastward. Step 1 on the map, he enters the territory of the Panchalas. Then, in really rapid succession for steps 2 and 3, he moves into the lands of the Gandakas and the Videhas. But here's the catch. He doesn't treat these 3 territories the exact same way at all.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer complexity of his tactical toolkit. Just look at the stark contrast here. With the Panchalas, the tiger among men began by various means to conciliate that tribe. He's basically using diplomacy and negotiation. But then, within an incredibly short amount of time, he turns around and absolutely vanquishes the Gandakas and the Videhas. It shows incredible versatility, right? Peace when it works, and rapid destruction when it doesn't.
All right, Section 3, the bare-knuckle king, and the battle in Dasarnas. So after the Videhas, Bhimasena moves right into the country of the Dasarnas. And here, a king named Sudharman steps up to face Bhimasena's massive, heavily armed, earth-trembling army. And how do you think he fights? He fights a fierce battle with his bare arms. I mean, it is a spectacular exhibition of martial arts and just sheer, unadulterated bravery. Can you imagine a king fighting a heavily armed, epic-level invader completely barehanded? Wild.
And the outcome of all this brutality is totally fascinating. Bhimasena beholds this insane feat, and instead of just crushing the guy, he actually respects him. In a massive twist, Bhimasena appoints the mighty Sudharman as the first in command of his own forces. You really have to appreciate the audacity there. Brute force unexpectedly ends with a fierce rival being hired and promoted rather than completely destroyed. It's a real game changer.
Next up is Section 4, Fierce Feats in the East, as they keep marching farther east.
Now, what's really interesting about this next phase is how, with Sudharman now in his ranks, Bhima marches further east and just methodically clears the board. First, he encounters Rochamana, the king of Aswamedha, and totally defeats him by performing feats that, as the text says, excelled in fierceness. Just absolute martial victory. Then the prince of the Kuru race pivots south into Pulinda, where he brings King Sukumara and King Sumitra completely under his sway. He is systematically locking down the entire eastern and southern flanks.
Which brings us to Section 5, the Chedi diplomatic summit and the meeting in Chedi.
All right, we finally arrived at the narrative climax of the whole campaign. After all these fierce feats, Bhima marches against Sisupala of great energy, the king of Chedi. Based on literally everything we've seen so far, you'd probably expect a massive bloody war, right? But the reality is a total twist. The king of Chedi comes out of his city, and instead of drawing swords, he receives Bhima with respect. These 2 bulls of the Chedi and Kura lines meet and simply inquire after each other's welfare. No weapons, just words.
The king of Chedi actually offers his kingdom unto Bhima, and smilingly asks, "O sinless one, upon what art thou bent?" He's respectfully inquiring about Bhima's intentions. And Bhima? Well, he puts away the fierce feats of war and simply explains his mission for King Yudhishthira. He's totally replacing bloodshed with an absolute masterclass in high-level diplomacy.
30 nights. That is how long Bhima dwelt in Chedi. He didn't just pass through town, he stayed for an entire month, being duly entertained by Sisupala. This number is actually huge because it shows us that they weren't just avoiding a fight, they were actively cementing a rock-solid stable alliance. It's only after these 30 nights of being a guest that Bhima finally sets out with his troops.
So what are the crucial lessons in power we can pull from this ancient text today? Why does all this matter? Well, first, true power requires strategic versatility. You just can't be a hammer looking for a nail all the time. Second, force is merely one tool in empire building. And third, recognizing your rivals as assets, like, hiring the bare-knuckled Sudharman or accepting the hospitality of Sisupala. That creates lasting command, not just a temporary victory.
We started with the earth trembling from a mighty host, right? But the campaign's greatest moments ended up being a job offer and a 30-day peaceful summit. It really makes you wonder, is the true mark of an unstoppable conqueror their ability to win without even drawing a sword? Just think about how the most terrifying tiger among men achieved its ultimate success by knowing exactly when to simply sit down as a guest. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.